I ran over 400 maps to gather some data on how good lost shipments are. After I tried to look up how good they were and found nothing, I decided to find out for myself. I wanted to find out if it could drop high-end tattoos, high-end rune graphs, and a good chunk of currency, or if it was just sort of the trash that you would filter out from your shipments. So this video will be going over the loot from 100 lost shipments and how lost shipments work. In the end, it was actually better than I expected it would be. First off, if you do not know, lost shipments are essentially mini settlers shipments that you can find in your maps with this new lost in transit node, which is at the left side of the tree. They are not actual shipments that you send off in Kingsmarch, they are in your maps completely separate. This node has a 6% chance to replace ore deposits in your map, and you can get 4 ore deposits guaranteed per map if you juice it up with a chance at more, making this around a 1 in 4 3.5 maps per lost shipment proc. But what do they look like? Well, they look like this. It is impossible to miss on your map as it is essentially a cluster of yellow circles. Lost shipments is one large chest surrounded by a bunch of smaller ones. The smaller ones drop loot similar to the main chest. For example, if you drop a bunch of runic equipment from the main chest, the smaller chest will also have even more runic equipment. If you drop a bunch of bubblegum currency from the main chest, you drop a bunch of bubblegum currency from the smaller chests, and so on. However, from what I can tell, you can only drop tattoos and rune grafts from the main chest in the middle. I never once dropped a tattoo or rune graft from a smaller chest. That doesn't mean smaller chests are useless though, as on several occasions they would drop a divine and exalted, stacks of stacked decks, all the way up to 16 stacked decks from one chest, a few chaos here and there, and some level 20 quality 20 gems. I'd actually say around half of the value from lost shipments comes from these smaller chests that surround the main one. As for the effect item quantity on your maps has on these chests, I personally believe it doesn't affect it at all. All of these maps were ran fully out just in case and that's it, but I did juice up one map with 5 risk scarabs to 500% quantity I believe it had, and opened a lost shipment within that map and it actually dropped less loot than usual, so I'm assuming that quant doesn't affect it because that map would juice to the gills. If quant would have affected it, there would have been a massive loot explosion. So how good are lost shipments? Well, in 100 of them, I made roughly 20 divines worth of loot. I'd say around 45% of that came from tattoos, another 45% came from raw currency, and the final 10% came from rune grafts, which is not shown in Wealthy Exile, so I did make a quick doc and listed out which tattoos and rune grafts I got, just in case anybody wants that exact data. I didn't include things like well-rolled rares, jewels, runic items, or anything like that, since it's in my opinion not worth my time selling. I only really include the stuff that I can get rid of instantly. But for the SSF players and people who are still gearing up, you can get some decent rare gear and uniques from this just like you can in regular shipments. But as for tattoos, I dropped two divine tattoos and one divine tattoo, which answers my question on if you can drop the higher end tattoos or if lost shipments just give you the junk slash middle end. Overall, I made around 9 divines from tattoos alone in 100 shipments, which isn't too bad. I dropped 83 tattoos in total, which is almost 1 tattoo per shipment. Rune graphs were much more disappointing, which is likely due to the fact that there's only really one jackpot rune graph, which is the gemcraft one, which I didn't drop. I did, however, drop 4 rune grafts that are on the upper end, so that also answers my question of if you can drop valuable rune grafts too. And currency wise, we dropped 4 divine orbs, 2 of them came in a stack from a small chest. We also dropped 2 exalted orbs and a 2120 gem. Those are the main things to note really. These lost shipments definitely have the chance to get some crazy jackpot hits, and I think this sample size of even just 100 shows that. We had 8 different drops over the divine and 100 runs, which is not bad, especially for what is essentially a single atlas node on the tree. So to sum it up, with a large enough sample size, I averaged around zero point 0.2 divines at every lost shipment, which at the rate of lost shipments is around 8 chaos per map. This isn't something worth burning in maps to find, but when paired with farming settlers and ores for your King's March, and when combined with the chance to get a 70 divine jackpot item from the Black Knight, which I actually got, settlers seems like a pretty well-rounded farm, especially for the low investment Alkengo type strats. A strat with a steady stream of currency with multiple ways to hit a jackpot, in my opinion, ticks all of the boxes that makes a cheap and a low end strategy good. And that's the video. Hopefully this helped those who were curious about the node, and if it did help, consider subscribing and liking.